Let's read the beginning of the story itself. Of the 700,000 villages dotting the map of India, in which majority of India's 500 million live, flourish and die, Kritam was probably the tiniest, indicated on the district survey map by a microscopic scopic dot, the map being meant more for the revenue official out to collect taxes than for the guidance of the motorist, who in any case could not hope to reach it, since it sprawled far from the highway at the end of a rough tract furrowed up by iron hooped wheels of a bullock cart. But its size did not prevent its giving itself the grandiose name Kritam, which meant in Tamil coronate or crown on the brow of this subcontinent. The village consisted of less than 30 houses, one of them being built of brick and cement. This is very interesting description here, because this is what in brief, as you will see, is the Sthala Purana of the place itself. So you will have someone calling the village Kritam, not descriptive village, but it has a name and a myth behind it. We are not given detailed descriptions about what exactly is the reason why it was called the crown of on the brow of the subcontinent, but we are also at the same time given a distinction in that sense, that the way that the Sthala Purana thinks of the place and how a context-free system of the revenue map, because for the revenue map everything is dots and squares and lines itself, right? So for that it's just a microscopic dot, just like 700,000 villages, which is again a numerical figure, a context free system, right? It doesn't tell us anything about the village per se, it's just like any other village. So that's why Narayan makes it clear that it's important for the revenue official, not for the people, because people would want to believe in the Sthala Purana, right? So for the people, it is important to realize that this is the Sthala Purana of the place, and one sees that there is also a description of it. We are told later in the story about what and why this place is named so. On just let me reach that part where Muni describes a bit more about the Sthala Purana of the place. He says, he went on all in chase Tamil, for the which Kritam was famous. Even the worst detractors could not deny that famous poetess Avayar was born in this area, although no one could say whether it was in Kritam or Kupam, the adjoining village. Out of this heritage, the Tamil language gushed through Muni in a flow itself. So we are told a bit more about what is the importance of this place. So you can see a distinction that is being made between the context-free system of revenue official or the revenue map and the map that is drawn in through Sthala Purana itself, right? So we have a context-free and a context-sensitive system itself, right? And one can start thinking of similar descriptions, as I told you about Kantapura itself, or other novels which engage in this kind of a description. And something else also takes place, which we are reading in Ramanujan itself. You will see that he's asked about time, and time and space, as we read, have very different connotations in India, especially in the Indian context sensitive way, where temporality is not marked the same way as it is done in the West. So that's why when he's asked about his time, his birthday, what is his age, he says 50, and then we are told about something interesting. He always calculated his age from the time of great famine when he stood as high as the parapet around the village well. But who could calculate such things accurately nowadays with so many famines occurring? So we are told again about how we think about time itself, right? He's not able to correctly or accurately think about his own age, and the age is marked vis-a-vis the great famine that occurred when he was as high as the parapet. So he's one can see a very indigenous method of thinking about age itself, of time itself, that what time it is. If you ask old people in the villages, like of the age of my grandparents, they will tell you according to the sun or the moon or something related to that. You ask them about their own age, they don't know. If you ask them about their birthday, they also don't know about those things, at least in my area as far as I have seen, and I'm sure the experience will not be very different in other parts of India itself. So, you see many such descriptions itself in this story also. In another instance, when he's asked about time itself, what is the time, and he would talk about when the green bus used to come. He watched the mountain road for a time signal. When the green bus appeared around the bend, he could leave and his wife would feel pleased that he had let the goats feed long enough. So, in those ways, you have time being described. If we move forward, again, one would see that the description of time and the yugas, as we were talking about in terms of Ramanujan's essay, also manifest here. Muni is describing the horse and the warrior to the white person who does not understand what is Muni saying. He says, "This is our guardian. It means death to our adversaries. At the end of Kali Yuga, this world and other worlds will be destroyed, and the Redeemer will come in the shape of a horse called Kalki. This horse will come to life and gallop and trample down all bad men." And he would go on to describe again Kali Yuga and its repercussions itself. One gets to see the space-time arrangement is a very different kind of arrangement here. We are also told about very context-specific ideas of curse, ideas of nazar, as they say in some parts of India. We are also given descriptions of certain notions of barrenness. Muni and his wife don't have a child, so people have rumors and look down upon them in terms of that kind of a curse. And then the discourse of marriage itself, that and how local discourses about how lighting a camphor to find a thief, all those ideas are there. What becomes very interesting for our discussion is when the American meets him, and that is occasioned by the road itself, again a vehicle of modernity itself. And let's read that description a bit, and we will from there take on the discussion forward. And it's very clear the sense of anxiety that modernity brings to a slow-paced traditional world. he noticed a new sort of a vehicle coming down at full speed. It looked both like a motor car and a bus. He used to be intrigued by the novelty of such spectacles, but of late work was going on at the source of the river on the mountain, and an assortment of people and traffic went past him. Probably we're talking about embankments or a dam. And he took it all casually, described to his wife later in the day, not everything as he once did, but some things only if he noticed anything special. Today, while he observed the yellow vehicle coming down, he was wondering how to describe it later when it sputtered and stopped in front of him. A red faced foreigner who was driving it got down and went around it, stooping, looking, poking under the vehicle. Then he straightened himself, looked at dashboard, stared in Muni's direction, and approached him. Excuse me, is there a gas station nearby? Do I have to wait till another car comes? And suddenly he looked up at the clay horse and cried, marvelous. Without completing his sentence, Muni felt he should get up and run away, cursed his age. He could not readily put his limbs to action. His first reaction is that, okay, some danger is there, and that gets heightened in the next interaction that happens. The American person gives him a cigarette to smoke and asks him, do you smoke? Muni answered, yes, no. And then he finally has a smoke. At this point of time, when his cough had subsided, he wiped his eyes and took stock of the situation, understanding that the other man was not an inquisitor of any kind. His fear was it was something related to law, judiciary, and one can see the fear of modern institutions itself. Yet, in order to make sure he remained wary, no need to run away from a man who gave him such a potent smoke. And you will see that he constantly keeps going back to some murder, some criminal activity that had happened in the neighboring villages, is what his claim is. And he thinks that this white man has come to inquire about it. Probably under some kind of garb, this person has come to take stock of the situation, probably to get hold of Muni. So Muni is constantly worried about this man for that reason. So after that, the man said, I come from New York, and took out his wallet from his hip pocket and presented a card. Muni shrank away from the card. Perhaps he was trying to present a warrant and arrest him. Beware of the khaki, one part of his mind warned. Take all the cigarette or bhang or whatever is offered, but don't get caught. Beware of khaki. He wished he went 70, as the shopman had said. At 71 didn't run, but surrendered to whatever came. He could ward off by trouble by talk. So he started talking. What is important for us to realize here is, again, this sort of interaction with modernity that Narayan presents at many places in his writing, and this is where we get to see the interaction of English, which also metaphorically symbolizes modernity, and literally here in terms of as a language that Muni does not understand. You see that Muni shrinks away from that idea of modernity, and this is a very also can be read in terms of context specific, context sensitive nature of interaction. He gives him a card, a visiting card, which is a very context sensitive gesture at this point of time, because Muni is not aware of it. Because that context sensitive gesture is plugged away from the context it was fine in operating, like his American company or the American society, where they would know that this is a visiting card that he's giving. Muni, however, thinks that any document from a person who is wearing khaki would be a warrant. And that's what he's talking to himself in his mind. So one can see if context specific gestures go out of context or think of themselves as context free or universal gestures, then it presents a curious case, and we have that curious case in our hand. And the ensuing interaction builds on this misplaced and misjudged action itself, right? So Muni starts talking in chaste Tamil that like he had nothing to do with the crime that has happened, the murder. I know nothing. Anything is possible here. People will stop at nothing, and then again something else happens, which is again something, a very context sensitive gesture. He thinks that Muni is the owner of the horse because he is sitting by this pedestal. So because Muni is sitting there, it must be a private property. It must be his private property. The notion of the private, notion of one's own is very different in India at this point than the American man. And then this person implores that please, I'll speak slowly, please try to understand me. Can't you understand a simple word of English? Everyone in this country seems to know English. I got along with English everywhere in this country, but you don't speak it. Have you any religious or spiritual scruples for avoiding the English speech? And then he tells him about his problems, that how he was stuck in an elevator and then he thought his life needs to be better, and that's why he came to India. And then Muni also engages in conversation that what is happening, and Muni felt totally, even though the confused conversation was going on, and the strangers asked him, isn't this statue yours? Why don't you sell it to me? So it's a very interesting clash of civilization, you may call it in one way. It's also a very interesting clash of the context free and the context sensitive, or if you think about taking something out of the context in that way, right? So he thinks that if this was in America, the statue probably would be the person who is sitting there, because otherwise the person will not be sitting near it. So therefore it has to be his. So why don't you sell it to me? Muni understands it in a different way. The old man now understood that the reference to the horse, thought for a second and said in his own language, I was an urchin this high when I heard my grandfather explain this horse and warrior. My grandfather himself was this high when he heard his grandfather, whose grandfather was there. I don't want to have seemed to stopped here for nothing. I'll offer you a good price for this. And the person was not in a mood to go on with this talk. He wanted to get it done and take the horse itself. But Muni has to finish the myth about the horse itself, and he goes on to talk about there's a reference to caste and discrimination, that like only those days Brahmins went to the school and everything. I don't know the Parangi language you speak, even little fellows in your country speak the Parangi language. I don't understand this. So then he goes on to about the myth of the horse itself, that the horse is a mythical horse itself, whereas for the white man it is a showpiece. The story takes an allegorical turn here in the way that the negotiation goes. What we understand from both their interactions is that for Muni, the Tamil representative here, uh, it is a local heritage, and he is not very mindful of the heritage, and we are told that the statue is not cared for by anyone. And you can read it as a parable of if colonialism itself. The colonizer comes, but in this case it's not a British guy, it's an American person, so a neo-colonial entity in that sense, who has the money, but who understand that, oh, this is wonderful finery itself, fine artistic expression, so I want to have it. I will take it to my house itself. I assure you that it will have the best home in USA. I'll push away the bookshelf. You know I love books, but and member of 5 book clubs. But I will push it away, and I will shift the TV. We can't have everything in the living room. Ruth probably will say about when we have a party. I'm going to keep it right in the middle of the room. So, what is an ancestral heritage in that sense, a mythical of having a myth of its own and everything, becomes only an object, an exotic object to be displayed for the white man. A proper tale of colonialism, where many of our statues, many of our temple gods and goddesses, many of our sculptures have landed up in the West thanks to colonialism, which have thought of them as drawing room objects, as this man also does. I don't know, I don't see how it can interfere with the party. We'll stand around him and have our drinks. On the one hand, when he's calling it a horse of mythical proportions, a horse on which the Redeemer will come, called Kalki, this horse of Kritam will come to life and gallop and trample down all bad men. That horse becomes a non-living thing for the white man, around whom they will have a party. So, what we also get to see is the role of English here. If you do not know English, probably Narayan is telling us, you are in danger of losing out, not yourself only, but also your ancestral heritage. Like the white man who picks up and takes the horse, uh, we might be robbed of our things without us being even privy to it or knowing about it, or probably that we didn't care about it. So, the white man coming and taking away is facilitated by English and our inability of not knowing English. If we knew English, probably the transaction would not have happened. In another way, the transaction did not happen also. But what Narayan seems to be telling us through this parable is the idea that about the importance of probably learning English so as we can trade, but that we can stop trade. If on the one hand knowing English meant engaging in trade, on the other hand, Narayan's warning here is that if we don't know English, probably we will not be able to stop the trade, because anyways they will take it forcibly, which is quite an interesting warning that comes in through such a deceptively simple, funny story itself. And that's why I had mentioned that Narayan is deceptively simple, because he writes in such a minimalist idiom. Many people think of his stories as simplistic. They are simple, but they are not simplistic, because Narayan is able to layer his stories in many ways here. If one looks at the role of English here, it's quite complex. Uh, Muni is speaking in chaste Tamil to a foreigner who is speaking to him in English. Muni does not know English, and you can see the desperation of the man, because he thinks everyone in India speaks in English itself. Probably the man has, and he says that his wife is in Srinagar, has stayed back, and he's roaming around. He's probably gone to urban centers at this point of time, and he says that he's gotten along with English everywhere in this country. So we are told that you probably can get around in India with English, but he's come to Kritam. It's a rural area. Probably people don't know English here, and he thinks that English maybe comes in obstacle with Indians in terms of their religious belief. And you can see many lives of English being exposed here, right? So, English, as I keep saying, English is not a language. You can see English is the language of trade, English is the language of colonialism. It's a vehicle of colonialism here, it's a vehicle of trade here. It's also being associated with outsiderness in terms of its religious quotient itself, that like Muni does not speak in English because of some kind of a resistance to English, because English represents a certain foreignness, certain strangeness in terms of religious identity itself. So English inhabits that outsider space, but also, as I articulated, because Muni does not know English, he is not able to stop the forcible takeaway of the horse itself. The other way that the story could be also read, and the role of English can also be read, is that that English lives here among Indians, and he says that I don't know English, but people in my village know English. I haven't learned this language, but we had a postman in our village who could speak to you boldly in your language. So it's not as if like this village is do not know English itself. So I do not know. English is though present in some or the other way here. So English has seeped into India itself, to the most rural parts of India itself. Modernity has come and brought its unintended consequences to Indians themselves. So one sees all those difficult ideas and conflicting situations coming together. It also tells us one final thing that it does is of the stupidity of the white man, because Muni comes back home with 100 rupees and his 2 goats. So what we don't care about, and no one really cared about the horse in Kritam in that sense, because the horse is dying. If you read the descriptions, it's lying uncared for. The white man is amazed, and it's not such a great piece of finery. It's just a random piece of horse that is built for ages, and it's been there. So the villagers don't really care for it, but then the white man thinks it's great art and everything, and it goes abroad probably as to be sold as great art. So in that way, not knowing English, the untranslatability of Muni saves him from the gaze of the colonizer also. So in this way, the story becomes very rich and layered and offers us many meanings which Narayan has packed into it, and tells us of many lives of English, and also gives us a glimpse of the 20s and 30s writing, which was which brought in an amalgamation of Indian and English together to talk about the multiplicity and heterogeneity of Indian lives when they came in contact with English. Thank you.